It's not just these random weirdos who throw hissy fits at fast food restaurants. This is even prominent people who are behaving in a way that is hysterical in the face of reality. There's an actor, Billy Porter. I'm not sure that I've ever seen him in anything, but I do see him pop up on talk shows and in commercials and things like that. Billy Porter was just on The View, whining and screaming and carrying on about Ron DeSantis.
Everything is about power, and you could always trace it back to the money. You say that all the time.
Yeah. Follow the money.
It's follow the money, follow the power at any cost. It's very hypocritical. The leading cause of death in children are guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're guns.
Yeah.
I know it's the morning and I'm not supposed to be screaming, but they're guns.
Yeah.
Not drag queens.
Not drag queens.
No.
Leave us alone.
Yes.
And it's a distraction. It's a distraction on purpose.
Here he goes on, and he just says a lot of things that sound like they're an argument, but they're not, which libs do a lot. They're these kind of non sequiturs. And it's hypocrisy. And there are distractions. And you want to talk about let's talk about corporate taxes, okay? Let's talk about the Second Amendment, all right? Let's talk about the 12th Amendment, okay? And you just think, well, what are you saying about any of those things? Nothing really. Guns! Guns! I can't even do it. I can't even do a Billy Porter impression. What is he talking about with guns? He's saying the big threat to children is guns, not drag queens. No one's saying that drag queens are murdering children. We're saying that drag queens are scandalizing children, and Drag Queen Story Hour is bringing often sexual criminals, child molesters, into places like libraries and schools to jiggle around in sexualized costumes for children, and that's obviously depraved and wrong, and in some cases already is illegal, and in other cases should be illegal, and we should stop it. Well, what about the guns? What are you saying about that? That's a completely separate issue. And it's true that guns are the leading cause of death among children. It's very close. It's just slightly ahead of automobile accidents. So are you suggesting that we ban automobiles too? Is your argument that we ban guns and we take away the Second Amendment, we rewrite the Constitution, and we deny people's right to defend themselves? Is that what are you saying? You're not saying any of that. You're not making any kind of argument at all. You're trying to distract, and you're distracting by yelling and screaming and wailing and carrying on. And as a rule of thumb, if your ideology causes you to wail and scream first thing in the morning, as Billy Porter acknowledges, there is probably something wrong with your ideology. I notice this every time I go visit different schools. I'm going to be going to Purdue this week. More on that in a second. But I was just at the University of Buffalo, and the protesters come out and they wail and they scream and they carry on. Occasionally, I'm able to speak to them. We actually have pretty interesting interview with some of the protesters at Buffalo coming out soon. Stay tuned for that. But when you speak to them one-on-one and you just try to get them to be reasonable, and you say, hey, okay, here's your premise, here's the logical conclusion of that, here's why your premise is wrong, here's my premise, here's the conclusion of that, here's why that's correct and more appealing and more conducive to human flourishing, they can calm down. But then sometimes they go right back to it and they start wailing and they start screaming. If you find yourself falling down that rabbit hole, recognize there's something wrong. The people who are correct, the people who are confident in their views, don't need to wail and scream. Sometimes cooler heads prevail. Before we go, we weren't able to get too much on this today, though there's not a ton of breaking news on it. We're waiting to see if the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, indicts Donald Trump, arrests El Donaldo. And Trump seems to be leaning into this. Might be the best thing that could happen to his campaign, and it shows you just how obscenely corrupt the political system is in the United States, that the libs would now try to arrest the leader of the political opposition, the chief rival to the current president. Van Jones, who is a Democrat, he's a lib, he's on CNN, he is imploring his fellow Democrats, he's imploring the DA, he's saying, hey, let's let cooler heads prevail and not cross the Rubicon here.
My view about this is I think that the heat is on this DA. I think he's going to make a very sober decision, and I would not be surprised if he doesn't step back from the brink.
So is this Van Jones's prediction, or is this Van Jones's advocacy? saying, yo, Bragg, calm down here, man. This is going to be an escalation of the political war in this country that we have never seen anything like this. A former president and current top presidential candidate being arrested for what? Because of totally trumped up charges. Now, the libs are very angry with Van Jones, but he's obviously right. Hard to go back from that, because if they do arrest Trump, one, it might help Trump's campaign, but two, the Republicans who are in these positions of authority, DAs, attorneys general, and governors to bring political pressure, should arrest 5 of their guys. Not innocent people, but criminal libs. There's no shortage of criminal libs out there who are not being held to account by the law. If they arrest our guy, we need to arrest 5 of their guys. Okay? And we'll see who's laughing by the end of that exercise. Okay? If the conservatives can muster the spine, I think they might be able to. Conservatives have mustered a lot more of a spine in recent years. Then we can't just roll over and allow the libs to arrest the political opposition and turn us into a complete banana republic. So then we have to arrest their guys, and it escalates and it escalates and it escalates. And is that where the libs want to take the political order? Maybe they're willing to take the bet. Maybe they're willing to play that game of chicken, but that's a dangerous game of chicken, says Van Jones. And he says, back off. I'm going to Purdue. I guess I'm going to Purdue tomorrow. I better finish writing my speech. I have not finished writing my speech yet, and already multiple protests are scheduled to try to stop my visit. According to the Purdue Exponent, 2 different protests have been planned against me. One will take place at the same ballroom that I will be speaking in. My critics are so confused that they can't even agree on how to protest me. And the posters, the ones that I've seen at least, say that I'm a fascist. They put all sorts of swastikas on me. They say no fascists allowed on campus. You know, a week ago, I learned that I was a genocidal maniac. I had never considered myself much of a genocide man, but that's what I learned by reading the newspapers. Now I learn I'm a fascist. Again, had not really considered myself a fascist, but maybe I'll have to go back to some of those fascist writings, try to I'm pretty sure I'm not a fascist. But that's what they say. They just escalate it up and up and up. It does go along with my new nickname, Benito Mussolini. But they'll do anything. They'll do anything to prevent me from speaking. And why? Why is that? It's because 2 weeks ago I said that men can't really be women and we should stop pretending that they can. And we should stop indulging this preposterous ideology in public life at every level. And they lost it. And they were so convinced they could cancel me. And then when the entire conservative media, from the most squishy to the most, basically the most squishy, I'm not going to name names, but very, very squishy media figures on the right, all the way to the most right-wing, they essentially all defended my speech. Because it's obviously true. Men can't really be women and we can't tolerate this stuff. We really should not tolerate it. Then top Republican politicians, multiple U.S. senators, they came out and the libs were so angry that they weren't able to squash this idea. They were so angry that for the first time in a very long time, conservatives might not just be playing defense and trying to slow down the libs, but might be trying to reclaim ground that the libs thought they had already conquered. They were so angry that now they're calling me Hitler. They're going to try to shut this down. They threaten violence. They do all this kinds of stuff. Okay, well, doesn't worry us. we come in prepared. You're not going to intimidate us. We'll be there on Thursday. So if you're in the Purdue area, come on by, say hey, and you can listen to the speech. The rest of the show continues now. You don't want to miss it. Become a member and use code Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.